remembering the past. So, this is my surprise. I'm going to play a story from the past. I want the panel and the people in the audience that's watching, I want y'all to try to figure out what came about after playing this story. An event did happen after this story. I'm let you know now, it's not an if or whatever. An event did happen after this playing this story. Everybody got it? Let's get into it.
So I'm still having trouble believing that this happened, despite the insurmountable evidence that says it did. This story also happened to my wife, which makes it much scarier for me that I wasn't there when this all went down except at the end. So my wife, who we'll call Jessica, was shopping at our local Walmart with our daughter, who is 2 months old at this point, getting some stuff for dinner for the week. Let me start by saying that in no way was she wearing any clothing that said she worked at Walmart. She was in the spice aisle on a relatively not-so-busy day, trying to figure out what spices we may be low of, when a Karen walks up to her. Karen looked somewhat familiar to my wife as she approached her, but any hopes of trying to figure out who she was immediately dashed by the moment she opened her mouth. Karen says, "Excuse me, I need help getting the pancake mix. It's on the top shelf." Now, Jessica, looking confused, said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I don't work here, and I can't help you out either because I'm only a few inches taller than you, so I don't think even I could reach it." At this point, Karen raises her voice and says, "Don't give me that. I know you work here because I saw you helping an older gentleman a few moments ago." Now, at this point, Jessica looks even more confused and said, "I'm not sure what you're talking about. I haven't talked to anybody except my daughter since I got here." Karen raises her voice more and says, "Don't you dare lie to me. I saw you help that guy, and how dare you bring your kid to work? That's so unprofessional." Now, what kind of crowd did this confrontation draw, you may ask? Well, a grand total of one person, a lady, who was standing at the end of the aisle watching all this unfold. There were a few people that looked down the aisle, but they continued walking, and this is important. Now, my wife can be a calm person, and she doesn't really like confrontation, but boy does she snap quick. She's well aware of her quick temper and will usually walk away from a situation if her blood starts to boil. Obviously, this was one of those situations. Without saying a word, she turns around and grabs the cart and then attempts to leave. Karen at this point is practically screaming at her saying, "Hey, get back over here. I wasn't done talking to you. I want to speak to your manager and I will have your job." This was the last straw for my wife. She turns around and starts screaming and cussing at her. She wouldn't tell me exactly what she said, but she felt so bad for some of the words that she chose. Karen looks utterly shocked. Then, she suddenly placed her head in her hands and started to cry. My wife felt bad for her for a second and was about to apologize when suddenly, Karen just took off running past her. When she turned to try to stop her, she watched Karen suddenly run into somebody who was standing right next to my wife's cart, knocking them both to the floor. It was the same lady that was standing at the end of the aisle. Karen very quickly shifts gears back to the usual Karen attitude and says, "How dare you assault me? I will have you both arrested for this. Someone call the police on this lady." At this point, the lady in question looked very concerned, and she looked like she just wanted to get the heck out of there. She got up and turned to run away, but as soon as she turned around, the manager and a police officer had just appeared behind her. The officer said, "What's going on here?" Karen's voice has gone from a shrieking eagle to a very calm but serious tone and says, "You need to take the three of us to the back room right now." The manager says, "Oh, believe me, we are." When they got back there, apparently everything was revealed. Evidently, the lady that Karen had run into had been stalking my wife throughout the store, and Karen had noticed her strange behavior. She had called the police earlier, hence why the officer had been there so quick. After she hung up the phone, it looked like the lady was about to make her move, so Karen decided to try to deter her, as well as try to call a manager over at the same time by acting the way she did. She didn't want my wife walking away towards the lady, so she did what she could to try to keep her to stay. Unfortunately, she wasn't planning for her to completely take her attention off my daughter. During my wife's beratement towards Karen, the creepy lady was making her move, so Karen took action while trying to keep things calm by pretending to accidentally run into her. She also didn't flat out warn my wife because she wanted to try to catch the person straight up, because she knew if she had scared her away, that she might try again with another child. So upon reviewing the security footage, it was confirmed that the lady was indeed following my wife around. And, after lying to the police about her identity, they found out that she had a warrant for her arrest for relations in multiple child abduction cases across the state. It was believed that she was the head recruiter for a large human trafficking ring. I was called a few moments later and flew down the highway to meet with my wife and make sure everything's okay.
I don't think we bought this then, and I don't buy it now.
Okay.
Yeah, this sounds like a Perry Mason special episode.
I'm not denying that. But what happened after this story?